Hey
How
Danielle.
about now?
Hi Danielle.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
It's a dance, but good.
Okay.
So sorry about bungling
Uh,
the Tuesday. I'm so sorry. I'm a Virgo and I really care about appointments and being on time. I'm also from the performing arts, so that's also the other piece of it is that I like to pride myself on never missing a call time, but
no, that's okay. It
I blew it.
happens. It's a little bit of a crazy time. So I'm just happy that we have you now.
Yeah.
Good. Um, all right. I've got our screen share here, and we're almost at the time. I think we'll have a bunch of people sort of coming on as we go. Hold on, let me stop the share. Oh, I like your background.
Oh, what do you think? I
I
stole it from the LA Times. It's
there's
the
gonna
empty 110
yeah,
and
there's
105.
I think there's going to be a big business in Zoom green screens.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We're going to get and it's something we'll see a lot of artists selling limited edition backdrops for
Yeah,
various different people.
totally.
New
Totally.
business idea. Good. So as people get going, I'll just do brief. Start with some brief introductions. For those of you who are just coming on, thank you for joining us. My name is Jonathan Neal. I am the director of the Center for Business and Management of the Arts at Claremont Graduate University, and this is now the fifth, I believe, fifth in our conversation series, LA Arts in the Age of Corona. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Danielle Barzell, who is the General Manager of the Department of Cultural Affairs for LA City Department of Cultural Affairs, amongst many other things, because you have quite a storied background.
I do. Don't we all?
I really appreciate you joining us today. Even though Tuesday didn't work out, it's even better to make sure these things, if we have them running twice a week, it provides lots of options. I'll make this announcement at the end again too. But next week on Tuesday we have Paul Schimmel joining us with Anat Ebgi to talk about what's happening in their worlds. And then on Thursday, we have David Pagel, who one of our very own professors at Claremont, but also a contributing critic to the Los Angeles Times. So we'll talk with David, and then we'll have a couple other in the weeks after that. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a really busy time. It's a crazy time. It's an unprecedented time, but we're pivoting and we're trying to be as responsive and responsive while being safe as possible.
For sure, for sure. So I'll get into more personal things later, but can you tell us just a little bit about some of the things that DCA has been involved in doing just in the last couple of weeks? I know the big one has been the emergency funds for artists, but I'm sure that there are other things that are happening too. So if you could give us just a brief on what DCA is up to and how the transition has been for your office and your staff and everybody to our new virtual world.
Yeah, so you know what, I will say that I'm just going to connect my headphones so as I can kind of hear and talk a little bit better.
Sure.
Let me just make sure that they will. Um, so, so I will say that the week of March, I guess that would have been March 8th, we started to learn, and I started to see like, oh, this thing is coming and it's coming really quickly. And we started to get briefings from the mayor's office. I started to talk with colleagues nationally and internationally, and we started to move very quickly to ensure the safety of our employees first and foremost. The Department of Cultural Affairs is about 100 staff. We provide grants for artists and arts organizations in Los Angeles. So we have about a $3.5 million grant portfolio. But we also run community art centers like Watts Towers Art Center, Hollyhock House, which was just designated UNESCO on the campus of Barnsdall Art Park, and we manage Barnsdall Art Park. So we have about, another, 50 employees basically out in the sector. We run municipal theaters as a rental program. So we needed to think and be very proactive and prepare what a shutdown was going to be. And we got that information on March 12th. So we were actually, in a sense, ready to shut down our venues to the public. And then the following week, we moved to prepare our workforce to begin working remotely. And that's really kind of amazing and crazy to think about for the city of Los Angeles, where every piece of paper has to be signed by a person. Like literally, it's kind of like sometimes like John Malkovich's brain, where you like walk into offices that are just piled with papers because we have to have so many wet signatures. But lo and behold, we mobilized very quickly. We got everybody out of the office the following week, and we've all been working remotely. And my focus was to make sure that once the staff was safe, was to make sure that every single one of our grantees would not be penalized for not being able to fulfill their grant requirements. Unlike the county or many private foundations, the city only provides funding for basically services. So we, quote, purchase services through grant contracts for the nonprofit cultural sector. And, many, multiple events were getting ready to take place. The city kind of dies down in January, February, and you start to see like the big uptick of openings and festivals all start to happen kind of late February, leading up and through the summer. And so, we immediately said to all of our grantees, this is a force majeure. We're going to move as much as your projects into a different kind of type of scope of work, but we're going to make sure we can get all of those payments out to you as soon as possible. And then we pivoted and we said, what can we do to cobble together some resources specifically to help provide an emergency relief fund for independent artists that lost income as a result of the closure. And at that point, we thought, maybe this is going to be, 3 weeks, 4 weeks tops, I think now the reality is starting to set in that this is not a month or two disruption. This is largely a 3-month rigorous social distancing order, and that the reverberations of this impact will alter the way that the art sector delivers programs and services, soup to nuts. So sure. I'll stop there. Yeah. To give you a little bit of what's taken place over the past couple weeks.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, just to continue that thought, then, I know that you all have been running at 100 miles an hour to try and pivot and do these things. What is now, given the new reality that this is a multi-month condition, and potentially a kind of permanent condition going forward? I mean, I think that is now beginning to sink in with a lot of friends and colleagues in other industries, that nothing will really go back to as it was. What, in your opinion, from the perspective of the DCA, what are some of the things that you're already seeing that may change going forward? How is the sector, how's the landscape going to be different as this begins to ebb in terms of let's say the restriction of the quarantine and the way that arts organizations are going to have to operate?
I think that we're still inventing that at the moment. There's still a tremendous amount of unknowns. I am part of a global network of counterparts throughout the globe. London, Shanghai, Amsterdam, Istanbul, Edinburgh. We convene annually, and we share resources and policy goals and responses. So we're actually in the moment of learning from each other. I've just learned last week that Shanghai was considering reopening some of its theaters, but just at a 50% capacity, while others are shutting down. You know, we learned that the Edinburgh Festival is canceled. Yesterday in the LA Times, we learned that the LA Philharmonic has canceled its season.
Yep.
So we are, and in other cities, we're learning about how visual arts organizations are going to be changing the way in which they put in place social distancing visitor experiences, changing the way that didactics and information on artworks and exhibitions are provided. So in many ways, it gives us an opportunity to reimagine what is possible. It gives us an opportunity to build out new ways of delivering culture. There's really some extraordinary, impressive work that artists are doing in creating in real time using technology from remote locations. So I'm really excited about that. And then I would also say that the hunger for content and connection is insatiable right now. That in many ways, COVID-19 is demonstrating to people just what really matters in life, and arts, culture, and creativity are central to that. So I think that while I don't have, and I'm not able to answer your question, I think that there's really
Unfair
some.
question.
It's such a rich time for us to kind of go into that reimagining space. Then it'll just kind of close with this piece, is that what I'm trying to figure out at the moment is, if we are not going to be able to gather in the same way for at least 18 months, we don't know, because we don't know if there'll be a treatment or a vaccine, then how do we ensure that, at least in Los Angeles, this extraordinary cultural infrastructure that we have all built over the past 50 years really doesn't die on the vine, right? Like, what does it mean to keep the arts ecology on life support, and reimagining and reinventing in new ways, when the very way that we thrive has been pulled out from under us?
For sure.
All right, that's the challenge and the opportunity.
Right. So the two questions that I want to ask that follow up for that. Maybe I'll start with the first one. So, like, the idea, sort of, some of the metaphors have been, how do you take the arts ecology in LA, but how do you take, let's say, an organization, let's say a mid-sized organization that has been built up over the years, gone from something at street level, now has a bigger staff, has maybe a building, these things that create institutional longevity, but are also significant overhead, right? I mean, probably no big endowment. There's not a lot of funds that are being kicked off, and so they rely on a kind of continual fundraising. What does life support mean, right? Or what does the other metaphor that I've heard used is, like, how do you put those organizations into, like, a medically induced coma, right? And in order to then maybe bring them back out. And what is that like? I mean, from your perspective, since you know this network, you know these organizations, you provide funds for people, what does that kind of look like in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would say it's really difficult. You need to retain skeletal staff. You need to retain a certain level of income to cover the baseline expenses. You need to innovate with your programming model. You need to stay relevant to the communities that you serve. You need to be able to find ways of delivering services, delivering programming when we can't gather. And so that has a different financial structure depending on your organizational model. That this really demonstrates why every nonprofit needs to have a robust, diversified income stream.
Yeah.
You know, in Los Angeles, we have, you know, our philanthropic support is relatively weak. The onus on earned revenue is really high. It's over 50% for the nonprofit sector. And when you pull out that 50% of earned revenue, you can't make the matches on all the other resources that you're requesting. So it really demonstrates the fragility of the sector. But at the same time, you know, this is really the stewardship of the board of directors and making sure that you have a really strong, diversified income stream. And I would say this, LA's arts organizations have done extraordinary because with the lack of kind of traditional private philanthropy, they've done what we've asked them to do. They've innovated, they've maximized their revenue streams to that point of 50%. And now we're seeing that even in that best case scenario with a global pandemic, this isn't just a one-time, you know, this isn't a massive earthquake where the event happens and we all, you know, get stunned. And then the next day after we take a breath, we can kind of start putting the bricks together. We're held in abeyance right now.
Right.
So I think that's the piece. You know, the other thing is for me is I've been having a lot of conversations about, well, what does it mean to be on life support? How do you start to scale down based on organizational values? And what do we need to keep the entire sector, small, mid-size, and the majors? Because I think that, you know, the majors play a really important role in delivering large-scale services and employing a lot of arts workers, right? I mean, I'm seeing so many of my Facebook feed, you know, keep saying like, just got my, you know, they're part-time arts workers and they just got laid off from both of their arts jobs and they both worked at major institutions. So that means that we need to leverage federal stimulus money in a way commensurate with the size and scale of Los Angeles. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted, this is a good dovetail to the other question that I wanted to ask. You're getting a lot of input from other cities and other people that are managing these sort of large scale cultural infrastructures. How is the LA situation unique? Is the American situation unique? And how are these other cities and how are these other cultural sectors managing this in the same way? Because you know, the question's obviously leading, because you have to, we know that it's hitting the arts and cultural sectors everywhere, but a lot of our colleagues that work in Europe or in certain other regions rely on a lot of government funding, right? I mean, there's a huge sort of backstop there. We know that they can sort of assume some cuts or maybe some downsizing, but their budgets are kind of there, right? And the requirements for earned revenue are not quite the same. So you've got more of the knowledge of that. I'm just making sort of conjectures. What does that look like, and how does it illuminate what it is that you've been doing on the ground in LA?
Well, I mean, I think that it's the full gamut. Forgive me as I am multitasking, trying to find what the number that Angela Merkel pledged to the cultural sector of Germany. But she does say, you know, I will not let them down, right? I mean, like it was the largest commitment, and I'm not getting the figure, but it's you know, it was a significant, you know, hefty amount. I think the largest that we've seen around, making sure that the cultural life of Germany would not be left, would not be stalled.
Right.
I think that 75 million for the National Endowment for the Arts, 25 million for the Kennedy Center, and then I think another 75 for IMLS and NEH is a far cry from the 5 billion that was requested per each agency. That would have been sizable and commensurate.
Right.
New York has been really impressive with an $85 million infusion. That's pretty much Bloomberg getting on the phone and philanthropy coming together really quickly and doing something sizable and commensurate to the New York region. The smaller towns, I think there's real concern. I was on the call with 60 of the largest local arts agencies just yesterday, and many, like even the city of Los Angeles, live and die by tourism. And when tourism is pulled out from under you, how are you going to continue to serve the public if it's not built into, your local municipalities' general operating support? But cities are hemorrhaging revenue at the moment. So it's going to be a real question. I mean, it's going to be a real question around values, and it's going to be a real question of internal advocacy to make sure that cities and municipalities and counties across the country realize that the arts are not only really essential to keep their communities focused when we're asking everybody to do really big, hard things. And then also, how do we ensure that we're ready to help accelerate recovery? Because those cities, and I think that there's some new reports coming out that those cities that in 2008, 2009 made sure that the arts sector was basically somewhat intact after the Great Recession, did far better in being able to accelerate economic recovery. Once we get past the public health crisis,
Right.
It's all going to be about economic recovery.
Right. Right. Do you think that those studies that show the sort of the investment or the managing, the good stewardship of the cultural sector is causal, or do you think that just demonstrates that you've got city and municipal managers who are on top of stuff, and so they were able to come back stronger, that was symptomatic of good management versus being the driver?
I think it's a combination, as with everything,
So do you think that private philanthropy will come in to fill some of the gap? I mean,
well, we just saw a $10 million announcement from the Getty.
Right.
That's going to small and mid-sized visual arts organizations. That's fantastic. What we didn't see is national foundations join the Getty.
Right.
So we have now, one of the largest, organizations and funders in the country, the Getty Foundation, come in with a sizable gift for one aspect of the sector. And for whatever reason, we didn't hear anything about any other national funder coming in and joining the Getty.
Right.
So that's a question for me. In Los Angeles, we have a lot of small family foundations. They've all taken hits on their portfolios.
Sure.
So I think they're trying to assess how best that they can respond quickly. But I don't think it's going to be at the same level by any stretch as the 85 million that was pledged for New York.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was an interesting comparison, because the 85 million pledge from New York at the kind of city level, and then there was the sort of coalition of smaller funders like MAP and the Institute for Contemporary Art and things like that, which put together a comparable $10 million fund. And I was looking at that in comparison to the Getty having made their announcement, and you're kind of thinking like, wait a second, here are these kinds of, fairly, small to mid-sized groups on the East Coast, where maybe they're feeling the emergency a little bit more, but I mean, we're all witnessing it too. to come out with something equivalent to the Getty, which again, as you said, it's very well positioned to have a big impact, but also to really be a leader to aggregate, as they would in any of the sort of large scale citywide, countywide exhibitions that they've been putting on, to really be a leader in the kind of philanthropic backstop. And so it seems an open question.
Right. Excuse me, I've got to clear my
That's all right. But your health is okay. That's all right. There's this great effect going on with the virtual background, where it's like things just appear out of nowhere. I was on a call with someone yesterday where for a moment she was out of her seat, and her dog, who apparently was like the next closest thing in the field of vision, was all of a sudden there on the screen having the conference call. And I thought that was great.
That's really funny.
So how have you been managing personally? I mean, how is quarantine for you?
I have shelter, I have heat, I have food, and I'm incredibly grateful. I did have a bout of bronchitis, and I think it was really the stress of moving, to a distributed telecommuting structure and making sure that the staff and everybody was okay. So that, I think, exacerbated. I've got asthma. I'm an LA kid, so many of us grew up in the 70s under the worst air condition. Air quality. So I'm personally quite terrified of this thing. I've watched all of the modeling. I'm watching community spread and kind of doing my own kind of forecasting. But at the same time, I have a theory around, leadership and management. What is within my control that I can make very quick decisions around. So for example, the artist relief fund that we put together, that was a really important symbolic gesture that we needed to come out and say, this is well within our wheelhouse. I can divert these funds. I've already got the contract in place. Let's send a message to LA artists. These are who we serve, that we want you to be safe and taken care of, even though it's a very small amount. Mm-hmm. So I think that being able for me to have meaning and purpose is what keeps me sane. My partner is a commercial set decorator and production designer. She was actually on an Evel Knievel shoot in New Mexico. And that, when she got there, they didn't have a lot of the protections that we had already put in place around social distancing and hand washing. And so she started to kind of say, hey, we need to start doing this. She's also on the board of Local 44. But of course, the production shut down 2 days, and, she drove back from New Mexico, and, it's great having her home, but I think that everybody's got especially folks that have kids, or you're taking care of parents, or you have complicated family dynamic, you're co-parenting. These are the things that really make it incredibly difficult to manage and navigate, and it adds a layer of stress. But I think there's also really, for me, I have a cat and I have a partner, so I my family's okay up in Sacramento and in Arleta. I think we want to make sure that we're all safe, and everybody, and this is also what I'm telling my team. My priority is to make sure that they are safe, that they follow social distancing. I think the mayor is doing a great job, and I don't say that because he appointed me. I really think that he's leading with compassion, with strength. He's really the voice of LA at the moment, even though he's just the mayor of the city, and we have 88 other cities. So I hope, I would actually love to hear from folks of how everybody else is doing, and what are your tips? How are you getting through this?
Yeah, and that's a good segue. So if people have questions for Danielle, please throw them into the chat window, and you can take them as they come in. Yeah, I think to your point, I mean, it's a overall a sort of it's a high anxiety moment. I think that it first ratcheted up for me a notch only just this past week. I mean, there was sort of regular busyness and stress for transitioning to online at the university and making sure that everybody's okay there. Um, but I'm the sort of regular grocery shopper in our family, and we've kind of gotten it down to just going one. I mean, I used to sort of go to the grocery store every day, right, on the way back from work or something like that,
Right.
trying to pick things up. That's gone. And so this last time after Garcetti said everybody go outside with the face mask on, and I was in the grocery store just early this week and had a mask on. Everybody else had a mask on, and that was all of a sudden just wearing
Yeah.
that one piece of very limited personal protective gear made things feel very different out in the world
Mhm.
than before, when we were making sure to wash hands and use
Right.
Lysol wipes and everything like that. That all just seemed like a sort of extension of normal everyday hygiene. So that sort of brought it home. But then at the same time, I feel like we're eating much better.
Right.
Right? Cooking a lot of food and things like that. So if you had to, I'm very interested in these conversations too, to sort of think prospectively. I mean, I've been really gratified that, I mean, and thankful that everybody that we've been talking to has been safe, does have shelter, is not in a precarious situation. We feel very lucky along all of those variables. But I've also been very heartened that everybody has been really has this kind of cautious optimism, right? And is like
Yeah.
thinking about the change as something to be embraced and to be looked forward to, and not as the kind of end of the world as we know it. What
Mhm.
are, in your mind, sort of, what are some of those interesting positive things, either even just from a personal standpoint or from the organizations that you've been in touch with, or for some other people? You mentioned some artists that you've seen that they've been doing interesting work. What are some of the things that have like either surprised you or give you real hope for what's going to come
Mm.
out the back end of this?
Um, First of all, I don't think anybody on our elected side is saying, why do we need the arts? So I think that that's a really, somebody who, came up through the arts sector as a intern, student, practitioner, producer, artistic director, advocate, just everything you have done in the arts I've kind of done. Throughout that, it never really felt like there was an understanding from the electeds that the arts really matter, and I think that's really changed. So that gives me a lot of excitement and hope. Um, the way in which, um, for me, kind of observing the fact that there's a new report from Loyola right now. They do a quality of life survey every year, and Zev Yaroslavsky is kind of a leader in doing that. And the report came out yesterday, the day before. And one of the findings was that folks actually really believe in local leadership at the moment, and I would agree with that. I think that we've made some extraordinary shifts in our cultural behavior in a very short period of time. Um, it's really extraordinary to see what that takes. So I think one, the fear is really big
Yeah.
because if you wouldn't have, LA, we're like, I don't want to get that. No way. I'll hang out at home. That's cool. Um, so I think that's been really exciting. The way in which artists are responding, the way that they're reaching out, the way that they're using technology, the way that they're collaborating with each other. To me, this is one of the really exciting things um, that I want to keep seeing more of, because I think that you can't quell creativity. It's just you can't do it. So even just seeing like the dance parties, Cam switch to dance parties, and it's like this is what makes us so great. Now, what I'd love to do is figure out how we can amplify and aggregate that and centralize it so we can really demonstrate the power of the arts.
Yeah.
And again, I think it also shows just how resilient we are, you know, as people, as Angelenos. And when I say Angelenos, I mean, I just take the whole Southern California region, right? Like it's really quite exciting.
Good. So Laura Hyatt writes, first to thank you for advocating for and getting the release and the distribution of resources for DCA grantees. As you know, Laura is the executive director of LAND. She's asking, what's the timeline for funding for visual artists beyond performing artists?
Yeah.
And will they be similar?
Yeah, we're working on that. We've been, and the reason why we did performing artist is because the funding that we were able to utilize, it was the best nexus, and it was a defendable nexus that we could make. So we've just found some additional resources, and we'll be rolling out the next couple rounds. We also know that there's a new visual artist relief fund that was set up by Creative Council. Those are actually quite sizable awards, and I would encourage everybody to apply to Creative Council for those awards. The funding that we have is, you know, we're giving out micro grants at about $400 a pop. So it's not, it's more symbolic and really emergency, which we know is needed. But we'll be releasing more rounds in the next month.
Sure. But I mean, even $400 can be hugely impactful, right? I
Hugely.
mean, no one's getting evicted. I thought that was a really important thing to be able to put out. So it gave essentially a moratorium on people to pay rent and not have to lose their housing. And so I mean, every single one of these things really makes a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. Teresa Candido writes in and says she's been fortunate to hear you speak many times over the years and incredibly moved by your stories of art saving your life when you were younger. Do you have any advice for those who are currently unable to practice their art forms?
Find another art form. You know, if your art form is unavailable to you, don't let that get in your way. Don't let that stop you. If you know, you got to keep creating, or start finding ways of capturing the ideas and start making plans of works that you want to create when you can't create it. So there's the mental creation, there's the physical creation, and then there's the output of that creativity. And find ways of exploring with other mediums if you can't get to the medium that you have. That's what I would say. I don't laugh. Some people ask me, what's my art form these days? And I took up macrame because it was just like, I needed something really meditative and I needed to be outside away from the computer. So, you know, it's what I got right now. So I can use it.
That's really funny. One thing I'm curious about, I agree with you that like nothing can really quell creativity, right? That the arts happen kind of whether you want them to or not, depending on your disposition. But that's often an argument that is used by those who don't have the same drive to see public funding or philanthropic funding of the arts in favor of other, let's say, more essential services, right? Essentially, if we're looking at that right now, certainly from the kind of the medical and the healthcare field. And there's always part of me, I mean, I appreciate that argument, but I don't agree with it necessarily. But what is the way that you, when that is kind of turned back to the arts and say, well, listen, you know, like out of the aftermath of X, Y, and Z, these great things happen with no funding at street level. Artists will create whether they've got the means or not. And so, you know, but what's not going to happen is people are not going to wake up one day and just learn how to do heart surgery or learn how to build a ventilator, right? How do we respond to those things? How do we make the argument?
I mean, I say that artists are just as important as, you know, doctors or architects or plumbers. I mean, you know, then everybody needs to be paid for their services. So that's actually just non-negotiable. I think that in Los Angeles, we do have a distorted relationship with the way in which creativity is commodified. Because we do have such a massive industry behind it, you know, it skews it skews the value proposition, I think, for us in Los Angeles. And it's one that I feel that I constantly have to keep reasserting that while we do have, you know, an incredibly robust creative economy, that the purpose of creativity isn't solely to make money, that the purpose of creativity is that central aspect. And that as part of LA's broad ecology, we need to have the fluidity between that commercial and non-commercial experience. I don't know if we, at this moment, and the mayor's going to release his budget next week, so we're all holding our breath a little bit. But at this moment, I don't think that there's a opposition to the role that public funding plays in supporting the arts.
Yeah.
I just don't think that they're going to increase it anytime soon.
That's right.
I mean, I think it's a hard argument to make if you have 60,000 people, unsheltered people.
Right.
It's a very, very hard argument to make.
Right. No, I agree with you. Well, but I also think, I mean, to the purpose of the emergency relief fund, the argument is not that arts necessarily need direct funding, though it's great that they do, and I think it's important that they do. But if the argument for being able to support the arts is providing housing, healthcare, access to food and shelter in a affordable, secure way, that is going to make it possible for the arts to thrive all the more. And so really making sure that those things are on the agenda, and then allowing the arts to be able to come from that platform would be very important.
Yeah, and let's be clear, you can't have creativity without artists.
Right.
Right. You can't have a creative economy without creative people and creative workers and artists. Like you just aren't.
That's right.
So, you know, we can say that this is what we value, but if you don't have the workforce and you don't have the talent and you don't have the talent that's trained, it's not going to happen.
Well, and I think that this of any event will demonstrate how many artists are dependent on the industries that have been most affected, the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry, these places where a lot of artists find ways to make ends meet while they pursue their other activities, and that has probably hit the creative sector and hit artists harder than it's hitting those industries alone. To switch lanes here for a second, Laura Hyatt asked another question about what are the formats or platforms that you're enjoying or maybe consuming and experiencing art and performance these days while you're in quarantine, if you've been able to, because I know you're busy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm a big podcast. I like to listen to podcasts. I do really love watching film, and I just activated Canopy, which is accessible via all public library cards.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun to kind of explore, vintage and classic cinema, because sometimes I just need to let the brain chill out, and then I haven't really had time for anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's I have a certain amount of envy for colleagues who tell me that they've now got all this newfound time to either do writing or catching up on reading and things like that. And I'm sort of thinking that there must be some contingent of the population where the work has simply switched from them to us.
Yeah, I mean, I love, I have the Sun magazine is one of my favorite publications, and I have stacks of them that I'm dying to get to. I think this weekend, if the weather holds up, I might be able to get to some of that, and then I have a stack of books that I'm trying to get to too. So
yes, same here. And they're just staring back at me very judgmentally.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to anybody who is graduating in this spring and is looking to find jobs in the arts sector, which has been so affected by the pandemic?
Yeah. I would say that it's going to be tough, and that's not encouraging. But sometimes I think that if you know what you're actually going to be in for, that's, just know it's going to be tough. And then also know that the art's going to come back, and we're going to come back stronger. We're like a weed. We'll just come back stronger because you're not going to pull our roots.
That's right. Modified genes.
So, yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back very, very strong. And for anybody that's looking to have a job in the arts, you only want to be in the solution. So anytime you do an interview, you want to know, and you want to let that person that's interviewing them, interviewing you, how can you be the most helpful and why you can be the most creative. So to really listen, do your research on any organization that you are going to be interviewed by, and really try to get to the point of what is it that you can do to help them achieve what they need. It's always a partnership. And so don't despair, just keep trugging along, and you're going to have to compete against a lot of other qualified candidates out there too. So you gotta be the one that shines.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that advice, and I'm sure our students and graduates will as well. And I'm happy that it aligns with what we've been putting together in terms of messaging of.
Me too. Thanks.
Really needing to be of service, right? Like often we go out there and it's like, you're a new graduate, recent graduate. I've got to find a job. What organization can I find that's going to give me something, give me a job? Yeah. I think that in many cases, these circumstances are now flipped, and it's the relationships that you build now and the service that you provide and the help that you provide is going to be the foundation of whatever network it is that's going to get you through, and that'll be the beginning of whatever career or whatever path it is that someone's going to be able to take in the months and years to come. So it's almost an even a more important time to be out there rather than sitting on the sidelines, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even
and
though it's a really hard
I agree
time.
with you. That service piece, especially within a nonprofit sector, we are here to serve. Right. And how best do we serve the mission of the organization? Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, this was fantastic. Thank you for joining us. And good luck with managing the DCA through this tough time. It looks like they are in extremely capable hands. They always have been.
Thank you.
and look out for more. Join us again. We have more of these conversations, and
I would love to. What a great thing you're doing, and I'd love to hear from some. Who do you have coming up next?
So Paul Schimmel and Anat Adgi, so those two are next on Tuesday. It'll be interesting to hear from them. Anat runs a gallery based over on La Cienega, and Paul, as you know, had been a curator at MoCA with our colleague Alma for a long time, who I see on the line, and has been doing a lot of more international now consulting, and so we'll get to hear how this is affecting the commercial visual art world. And then David Pagel on Thursday from the LA Times and from Claremont, how this is affecting writers and art critics who now have to review things through Zoom.
Well, I think this is great, and I would love to be able to join and hear and listen and learn as well, because I don't have all the answers.
We will make sure you know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Thank you so much. Great to see everyone.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Be safe. Bye.
Bye.